Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Jeff Rutledge. I'm CEO of Med Results Network. We have 3,500 practices and med spas in our buying network. And approximately a year ago, we contracted for GLP-1 products such as semaglutide and tirzepatide made by a manufacturer. We started to notice a lot of things that patients wind up telling you at some point, I've hit goal weight, this costs too much, I can't afford it anymore, or I have side effects. In other words, they get off the program. And the question I always asked was, well, what are you doing with them? Everybody said nothing. So we were fortunate enough to know Dr. Mark Tager, and we talked to him about this little dilemma that we kept seeing, and he told us to go talk to Calocurb, and we'll let him talk about Calocurb. But it's a wonderful. It what we look for is good science, good medicine, good economics for your practice, and Calocurb fits all of that. And we thought this was perfect, and we were able to work with them for a couple months to negotiate a deal for our membership. And we do have members that are signing up for this program, and these guys will tell you a little bit about it. We have Dr. Tager, who's going to introduce you to this, Dr. Walker, who is from New Zealand, where Calocurb is based and works with Calocurb. And then Dr. Goldfarb is going to talk about how he incorporated this into his practice and how successful it's been. We think that we're finding that some of our members are stacking it with their current GLP-1 program. Some are using it after to reduce or minimize weight rebound. So there's many ways, and these guys are all going to talk about it. So I'd like to open it up to Dr. Tager.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Hopefully you should all be able to see my screen. Let me just pop this guy up here. Excellent. So I'm going to speak for a little bit about the landscape and trying to understand the motivations of patients who come in for GLP-1 and really what the positioning of supplements could or should be in this process. Now, it's rather astounding to me as we look at this latest stat that roughly 12% of US adults have used a GLP-1 drug. And even if it is quote unquote unaffordable, and this is the medical viewpoint of things. So that's a striking number of people. And if this was a survey, I'm going to present some data from a survey done by the Nutrition Business Journal that just came out last week. And I think it will shed some light on a number of the motivators. So why are weight-conscious consumers considering GLP-1 drugs? Well, duh, to lose weight. But there's a lot more than that. This is more nuanced. So if you notice another large category, almost 60% of those folks, to eat healthier or just to maintain their current weight, to improve their heart health, to control diabetes or blood sugar. This concept of food chatter is something that that's going on in social media, and it's been picked up lately that the Ozempics, the GLP-1 agonists, shut off the food chatter where they just get home and they just have to hit the refrigerator. And then there's a few other risks as well. But this is why potential GLP-1 drug users aren't taking it. In other words, what are the barriers to their use? Too expensive, certainly, and I know you all see that. Concerns about the negative side effects, concerns about, well, if I start, I've got to be on this drug forever. They're worried increasingly about the loose skin, the cosmetic kinds of issues that come up, that they may not have meet a weight plus health condition. Fear of needles, 10, 11%. Concern it might affect my athletic ability, the doctor's advice. We're just not comfortable with pharmaceuticals. So what I would point out here is the interesting thing about the concern about the negative side effects and too expensive. So, how much potential weight do these GLP-1 drug users want to lose? 28% said they want to lose between 0 and 20 pounds, 50% between 21 and 50 pounds, 15%, 51 to 100 pounds. There are a few folks who want to lose more than 100 pounds and more than 150 pounds. And I think Dr. Goldfarb can speak to clinically the kinds of patients he's seeing and where they are with enormous weight loss or just the 0 to 20 pounds. Now, what concerns them? They're concerned about nausea. They're concerned about digestive problems, diarrhea, fatigue, insomnia. They've all read all these things on the internet, on becoming dependent on the drug, on getting depression, and again, the loose skin as well. Now, here's what I thought was extremely interesting. This is again from the same report. In conditions that range from nausea to brain fog, the anxiety about side effects for people who had not started the drugs was significantly higher than the incidence of those side effects on people currently using the drugs. So the side effects are less, and for some reason, folks who are taking it, they're eventually tolerating, for the most part, these GLP-1 agonists. So now let's look at the supplement connection, and because we're talking about Calocurb, which is a supplement. So how often do these current GLP-1 drug users take supplements? Well, 46% take them daily. Another 38% take them often. So these are people who are believers in supplementation, 12% sometimes, and a few rarely or never. And one interesting point was their willingness of the potential GLP-1 users to try weight loss supplements before going on the drugs. 60% said yes, they would be willing to try a supplement first. 26% not sure, and 14% said no, I want to go on my injectables. And this is when the current GLP-1 users started taking the supplements. And you see that the majority of them take them before taking the GLP-1 medications. So these are folks who are already pretty much on supplements. If you ask them, are you taking supplements? You're going to find that, 70% are either taking them daily or taking them occasionally. So their experience, though, has not necessarily been all that great with pure supplements because there's just been a lot of bad supplements in the marketplace. So you can see 43% did not take any weight management supplements. 18% tried them and they weren't pleased with the results. The 17% were unable to maintain weight loss. I tried them and they were pleased with the results. So these are the other alternative supplements that have been in the market that have been out there for a while. This is not Calocurb. So I just want to make this distinction that this particular report did not really discuss Calocurb. So would they consider a proven, safe, supplemental alternative to the drugs if it were as effective? About half the people. Half as effective, 43%. 9%, at least 10% is effective and priced accordingly. So how much would they spend? 56% would spend between $0 and $50. 27% between $51 and $100, and 12% above that. So another really interesting thing that's emerged, so that's a supplement connection, is that these GLP-1s are beginning to unlock health behavior change in individuals. So one change, and I don't know if this is good, is how long the users plan to be on GLP-1 drugs. Now, part of this is also an expectation set by practitioners. 15% plan to be on it less than 6 months, 40% up to a year, 23% 1 to 2 years, 15% more than 2 years. So this is part of this behavior change mindset. How long they've been on it in this survey? 27% had been on less than 6 months, 48% between 6 and 12, and you can see what's longer than that. Now, this is what I find really fascinating, and this advocates for a holistic, whole person, integrative, functional approach to weight management and muscle retention. So these folks, almost 60% said, you know what? I'm eating more whole foods relative to other foods. I'm eating more protein to combat my muscle mass. I'm eating less food. I'm eating lesser volume of processed foods. I'm eating, so a few people said they're eating more processed foods. Now, what's interesting, I have an aversion towards certain foods. There was listening to some podcasts recently that says that the GLP-1s may actually affect the taste receptors and make people who take it less likely to eat because of the taste uh, sugar. So we can certainly unpack that a little bit more. Um, and this is, I found pretty fascinating from a behavior change standpoint, that 78% of the people were exercising more. And I really wonder why that is. I wonder whether we have, in fact, empowered people. They come in with these motivations and they are positively and powerfully impacted that they can make changes in their lives and in their behaviors. So perhaps the GLP-1s are spurring people on to be able to adopt a healthier lifestyle. So that's all that I have. I will stop sharing and turn this over to Dr. Walker.
Dr. Walker, before you start, I want to tell everybody, if you have a question, you can post it in the Q&A and we'll go through that after Dr. Goldfarb. Go ahead, Dr. Walker.
Well, thanks everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the development of what we call amyrosate, which is the active ingredient in Calocurb, and some of the science that backs its usage for weight management. So this all started in around 2010. So the government organization that I work for got a $20 million New Zealand grant. So that's around sort of 15 million US dollars to develop a nutraceutical for basically appetite control and the use of weight management. So the reason we got this was because at the time there were really no good drugs available. So sibutramine had been withdrawn from the market in sort of a few years earlier due to concerns around cardiovascular events. And there was another drug, rabanicide, which was an inverse agonist of the cannabinoid receptor. So basically think anti-marijuana, which was used in Europe as an appetite suppressant, and it had suppressed people's appetite, but it had also made people have increases in suicidal thoughts. So the sort of the drug market was pretty empty. And so the New Zealand government said, well, we've got a problem with weight. What can we do about it? So we got this grant and we decided that the best thing to do was to target the gastrointestinal tract. And so we did a large study targeting the gastrointestinal tract. And we really, the key things we discovered was that there were bitter taste receptors present, or bitter taste buds in the gut, that you could activate them with a few plant compounds, primarily hop, and that if you did this, you could then in people show a reduction of food intake and a reduction in hunger. So why did we look at plants? Well, the reality is that plants have been evolving for millions of years to stop people eating them. So if you think of something like, say, an apple tree or a strawberry bush, what you have is you have a fruit which tastes very nice and is delicious. And then around that fruit, you'll have a series of leaves. And the plant doesn't want you to accidentally eat those leaves. So what it does is it puts bitter compounds in there that dissuade you from consuming them. Now, it does this at two levels, really. It does this at both the oral taste level, but it also does it at the gastrointestinal level. And so what we did was initially a study where we looked for these bitter taste receptors in the gut. And so I went into hospital and I asked people to volunteer biopsy samples from along their gastrointestinal tract. We ended up with 30 people or 28 people, but some of them gave multiple sub procedures and gave 300 biopsy samples. And we could show that bitter taste receptors were present all the way through the gut. So these bitter taste buds were present all the way through the gut, and that they were sort of linked in areas where you'd expect to have appetite regulating hormones present. So we then went on to do another in-lab study, convinced that we had these bitter taste receptors in the gut. We then did some high throughput screening. So kind of what like a drug company would do. And we got the cells from the gut that contain the bitter taste receptors and that also turn out to contain appetite suppressing hormones. So things like GLP-1, which is what everyone's interested in, but also other hormones like CCK and PYY, which are gut hormones that suppress appetite. We grew these cells and we ran around 1,000 different plant extracts, compounds, and pharmaceuticals on them to see what would stimulate the release of these appetite suppressing hormones. And what we were able to show was that, to be fair, most stuff didn't work. And that's not really surprising, because if something that was a little bit bitter would trigger the suppression of appetite, then every time you had a coffee, you'd say, oh, I feel full. But what we found was that a particular variety of hop, we named amarisate, was particularly effective at stimulating the release of GLP-1 and CCK from these cells in the lab. And so we did some dose-dependent testing. We showed that increased over time, and we did some formulation work and figured that this hop extract was really good for basically testing in people. So we ran some human studies to see if we could get the same effect in people. So it's one thing to show it in cells in the lab. To be fair, that's quite easy to do. But to do it in people, that's a really big challenge. And so we've run 3 double-blind placebo-controlled trials. Probably the most interesting one is here, which is looking at GLP-1 release or GLP-1 levels in your body in response to a meal when you have taken the Calocurb product an hour before in a delayed release capsule. And so what you can see in the figure at the top here is that you can see that Calocurb, if you take Calocurb, you get a larger boost in your GLP-1 response, and that is maintained over a period of time. And so it's extended for a period of time. And you can even see that even after around 4 hours prior to after the dose, you're still getting a big elevation in GLP-1 levels. And that is despite the fact people were eating less food at those meals. So you'd usually think that if people are eating less food, they'd have lower GLP-1 levels. They actually had higher GLP-1 levels when given the Calocurb supplement. And I think that's really testament to how powerful it is. So it was driving the release of these hormones, they were suppressing people's appetite, and it was maintaining that release for in excess of 4 hours. So what's important here is that we have an increase which is around 6 times over the baseline level. Now, when you look at GLP-1 and you look at CCK as well, and another hormone PYY, you need to get above around 4-fold over baseline in order to have additional biological effects, in order to start affecting appetite. Now, you can affect things like blood sugar levels with a lower response, but you really need to push it quite high in order to get an appetite change. And we're in that biological range with that product. And what you'll find is most things on the market are having very small changes in GLP-1 levels and are not really in a biologically meaningful range. So how's it working? How does the product work? Well, it's in a delayed release capsule. So we get it past your stomach and it releases in your small intestine. Now, because we want it to release in your small intestine, it's important that it's taken on an empty stomach, or a relatively empty stomach anyway, so that it can pass the stomach into the small intestine. It then releases in the upper duodenum. Now, due to the formulation and the low bioavailability of the active ingredient, what you end up getting is a sort of a bulbous mass that goes down the small intestine, and as it progresses down, it stimulates the release of CCK, then GLP-1 and PYY as well. So we're boosting 3 major gut appetite suppressing hormones as the product goes down. It's then primarily broken down in the large intestine. We're probably getting other appetite suppressing hormones being released as well. These are just the ones that we measured in the study. The effect lasts around 4 to 6 hours in the studies we've done. For some people, it lasts longer. we do get reports of people taking a singular dose and feeling their appetite suppressed for the entire day. We've also shown effects on behavioral changes. Now, we wanted to see whether we could reduce food cravings and hunger. And so we chose essentially a really challenging fasting model where we made one study was in males, one's in females, where we made people fast for 24 hours and then measured them over the last 8 hours of that water only fast. So a period of time when they're going to become very hungry. We were able to show that if you gave the Calocurb extract at 20 hours and sort of 16 and 20 hours into the fast, that we could basically blunt any increase in hunger that they got. So it's important to remember that these people are still hungry, but they're going from hungry to really starving in the placebo group, but it's pretty much blunted that. So they're maintaining a moderate level of hunger when they're on the Calocurb product. I think that's very important for making healthy food choices when you break your fast. What's probably even more interesting, and this feeds into GLP-1s and their effect on food craving and food desire and food choices, in that we actually showed that when Calocurb was given or Amarasate was given, that food cravings for food were lower at 24 hours than they were at 16 hours into the fast and significantly lower than the placebo treatment. We also saw that when we gave an eat till their full rebound meal after the fast was ended, that was reduced by about 15%. So in line with what we saw in the previous study with an 18% reduction in voluntary food intake. So how do you take Calocurb? Well, so one of the things about Calocurb is it's gut targeted, and gut targeting is great for safety because you don't have to absorb it. It's great for efficacy because these hormones are very effective. There is a slight more variability though. So people's guts are a bit more different than their sort of blood volume. And so there is a little bit of optimization of dose that's required. So what we recommend is that people take one capsule for the first 2 days, see how they're going, then take one capsule on day 3 twice. So one capsule in the morning, one capsule in the evening. Then on day 4, again, the same. And then on day 5, go up to 2 capsules twice. And what you'll find is that the majority of people will be fine with 2 capsules twice a day, although some people will find that that's a bit strong for them and they'll need to go down to 1 capsule twice a day. There is also the odd person who is quite resistant and they might need to take 3 capsules at once. It's really good to take this on an empty stomach because, as I said, we need to get it through to the small intestine for it to have full efficacy. It will still work if you don't take it on an empty stomach, but it's not as good. So that's me done. So I'm pass it on to Richard.
Okay. Okay, Mark, do you want to pop the deck up?
Yeah, let me pop the deck on just a sec. Share.
I have a very, yeah, and this really is,
Hold second. Give me a second.
okay. And essentially, I'm a practicing physician with quite a large medical weight loss clinic. We actually started doing our medical weight loss with the GLP-1s and everything about 6 years ago now. So we were kind of the first on the block. We do it a little differently. We believe in what's called a touch program. We took a little bit of information for our program from the great success of Weight Watchers, where you would have to be accountable weekly, and we really maintain that. So patients are a little bit accountable, and I think that's how we've gotten such incredible results. But they actually do like to come in and see their progress, and we measure all these things on a weekly basis. So instead of just handing them something, to have that kind of what we call a touch weight loss program has been very successful in our practice. Next. So as it was discussed, the randomized double-blind study of the CCK and GLP-1 showed that the baseline 2 times norm postprandial and the gastric hormones. And in the study, it showed the males showed a 25% reduction in hunger and Actually speaking, we probably have a little more females in our current practice, and we're a little more interested in that. And actually, the females actually did a little bit better. So overall, about 30% and 40% in overall food cravings. So who should not take it? Number one. Well, if they have certain GI, we obviously see them as a patient first, and we want to make sure that they don't have any GI inflammatory bowel disease, especially such as Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. I think that's the danger of just, not treating them under a physician's control, because you certainly don't want to start treating patients with it, with have these conditions. Although I will tell you, it's a lot safer to treat them with Calocurb than it would be if you put them on an injectable GLP-1 or combo of GLP and GIP. Type 1 diabetics, I actually have a patient who didn't really disclose to me she was a type 1 diabetic, has had no issues or problems with it, but we're really not supposed to prescribe it for those kind of, or suggest it for those patients that are type 1. Next. So our biggest concern or complaint has always been this little mild laxative effect that lasts about 24 hours for the first 3 days. When you take something and you're starting it out new and you get that right away, it kind of turns you off. So what we do is we kind of make sure that we follow exactly what Dr. Walker had said. We really want to make them a slow progression into it. Everybody wants to lose 10 pounds the first day, so they think more is better. And we really discourage that. And we're very strict on telling them, take it on an empty stomach, and we want them to drink a fair amount of water with it. And we feel like if we can teach them how to use it that way, that our compliance has been significantly better. Next. So we know that its onset is about an hour. Having said that, we try to tell our patients, if they're at work and they're driving home at 5 and they are typically going to have a meal at 6 o'clock, we try to tell them when you're driving home, take it then so that you're ready. And I really think the hour before makes a difference as far as getting our better results. Duration is 4 to 6 hours. I think that is absolutely important, and I'll tell you why. I know for myself personally, and I know for many of our patients, because we take a very thorough history, everybody, may starve themselves during the day because they're working, they're active, and then, they eat dinner and then they're just sitting around or watching television. And that's that nighttime eating, which I think is the worst thing as far as weight gain. And the fact that the duration gives us that 6 hours, that's tremendous. And they don't eat anything and they go to bed. And I think that has helped tremendously with our results. Next. So improvement in the post-meal glucose is very, very important. And I think Dr. Walker mentioned they are doing some more studies to show exactly how the effect on glucose metabolism is. We certainly know that the GLP-1s definitely potentiate the release of insulin relative to the glucose absorption. Therefore, the glucose clearance is from the blood. So that's really important. So if we can have patients that are just taking this and actually get a decrease in their A1C and then their glucose levels, so many other added benefits happen. So I'm very anxious to see what those final results will be from their study. But I know in our patient population, ones that are taking it solely, it's definitely decreased their glucose levels, I can tell you, because we've measured them and we've seen it. And it's really very encouraging. All right, next. So what do I do in our practice? Well, we have certain patients that come in, they want to lose weight. They don't want to go on Ozempic, tirzepatide. They're scared of the side effects, number one, and they're scared of the cost factor. They also have some other issues, such as they've had what they call the slow gut or gastroparesis, and they are fearful about pancreatitis. And a fair amount of these patients, if you look at the literature that's out there, do get some cholecystitis and gallbladder disease. So there are quite a few patients that come in but still want to lose weight. We do have some of the older medications that we can give orally, such as like an Adipex, and these phentermine things. And of course, they have their side effects with causing some heart racing and other side effects. And the biggest problem I had, and how I personally, and I'm sorry to deviate for a second, but how did I really come to really want to get involved with them, is the fact that I get patients that do a great job on their Ozempic, tirzepatide. They want to start weaning down off of it. And sure enough, they gain their weight back. And now they're upset, number one, because they gained their weight back. And I really didn't have an answer for them. So I was very fortunate that Dr. Tagger had introduced me to the company, and got to work with them, because it really fit a void in my practice. So I would say anybody out there that has a practice of weight loss and you don't have this in your practice, you're really missing out, because now there is an answer for you. So what we did is we have a lot more patients, but I'm going to just tell you about their first 50 patients. I really wanted to see if it worked. You know, it's nice to see all the science, and everybody loves science. And I'm kind of a science geek, and I love the numbers and everything. But what happens in reality? What happens to your real patients? So what we did is we had about 10 patients that were on Calocurb only. Those were essentially the ones that wanted to lose a little less weight, although we have some that lost some nice amount of weight. We had 20 patients that were on Calocurb during their injections. So what I've seen is they'll start on a certain dose of their tirzepatide or Ozempic, and maybe they're Sunday night injectables, and they're waiting till the following Sunday. But sure enough, Thursday hits, they're kind of getting that breakthrough hunger. Now what are they doing? So then they're calling and saying, what am I going to do? So a bunch of those patients, I was able to give them Calocurb along with taking their injections, and that would decrease that breakthrough hunger. And number two, it didn't have me to have to increase every month on their dosing. They were able to stay on a lower dosing, which is really a great benefit as well. And 20 patients were placed on Calocurb after stopping the injections. So again, that's what I failed at when I first did this, because I haven't used it for 6 years. We really had an issue with that. How am I going to do it? So I had to convince them to stay on it. A lot of them had some cost issues. We basically had lost some money to keep some people happy. You know, what are you going to do? We just wanted to keep them on it. Now we feel we definitely have a very cost-effective and alternative for those patients. So we're very happy to tell you that all those patients, of those 50 plus, we have significantly a lot more now, have maintained their weight loss. None of them have gained that weight back. And I'll show you a few pictures of some before and afters, and then we can do some questions and answers. Next. So you see this patient, kind of an interesting patient, was on semaglutide and maintained on Calocurb for 3 months. So it's amazing that in 3 months, she lost that weight. And what was so nice about it, because I think in our program, we actually get them to exercise. We have a whole program with that. We also build some muscle stimulation with them. If anybody's interested, please contact me. I'll tell you how we do it, what we do for them, because you'll see we don't have a lot of loose skin, and you realize these people have lost a significant amount of weight. And I think that's a key factor. Next. Now, she was really one of my first trial patients when I first was introduced to the company. And she was on Calocurb for 3 months. Now, was she disciplined at that time? Yes. She was disciplined back then, but just couldn't lose any weight. She came in saying, I can't lose weight. I'm trying. I eat well. I work out, this and that. We gave her the Calocurb, and sure enough, it really transitioned her. Next. So this is a patient who really doesn't work out, doesn't want to do anything, and was one of those that would call our office and say, well, I think the dose is too low, because now it's 3 days later and I'm hungry again. Now it's 4 days later. So what we did is we were able to give her the Calocurb at the time she wanted us to give her another injection, which we were not going to do. So again, we didn't have anything to really break that pattern down, and Calocurb really fit that bill beautifully. Next. So this is a patient. She did not have to lose a lot of weight, but she definitely lost significant amount that she wanted to maintain her weight loss. So this is her maintaining her weight loss after she had initially lost her weight. So she says to me, I'm a lifetime user of Calocurb. I'm not going to go off it. She's too afraid she'll gain it back. And she feels good taking it. And it's nothing to take a capsule or two once or twice a day before lunch and dinner. Next. So again, after injections, maintained the weight loss for 3 months. Again, incredibly happy people. I can't tell you how important it is that they maintain themselves on the Calocurb after. Again, I have God knows how many patients now. I'll have to check with my staff, but we have so many that swear by it and they go away, they take it with them. They really have it as part of their, like they take a daily vitamin, they just take it. And they've been very happy with it. No additional side effects on long-term results that we have seen. And again, they've maintained their weight beautifully and they're happy. And there's a lot of other parameters that we have measured, besides A1C. They also, all their, their metabolism is better, their heart rate is better, their brain fog is better. There's so many other benefits that I attribute not only to the classic Ozempic tirzepatide, I do think Calocurb is playing a tremendous role in that as well. Next. So thank you very much for your attention, and I guess we'll go to some questions and answers.
Sure, let me get over to that. Okay, first question is the Calocurb not effective if you take it closer to a meal than recommended? The problem many of my clients are seeing is that it's too hard to remember to take it an hour before and 2 hours after food.
Here it is. Set the alarm.
So what does anybody want to respond to that?
I mean, I can say that the clinical data shows decreased efficacy if you take it on a full stomach. So it's less likely to get through to the small intestine at a concentration that's enough to stimulate those appetite suppressing hormones. So it is a challenge. I mean, it does still work a bit, and for some individuals they will still get appetite suppression. But I think that you're more likely, what we do see is the higher rates of side effects, and particularly a shifting from that laxative effect through to more of a bloating type effect if you take it with food or on a full stomach, and a reduce in efficacy. Perhaps Richard could comment on if he's had any patients.
So I've had patients, obviously, because we have such a large section of patients that take this, we've had patients that don't comply like that. And they're taking it and they're thrilled because they're getting that 4 to 6 hour postprandial effect where they're not eating or feeling hungry at night. And some of them say that, and I tell them, well, you can really decrease the amount of your calorie consumption if you would be more compliant. And I agree with Dr. Tagger. All you got to do is, we all have cell phones, put it on there and remind yourself to take it. But I do agree, if, certainly it works better on an empty stomach an hour before.
Next question is, will Calocurb be available to people outside of Med Results as well as Med Results device owners as well as the owners? Med Results is free to join. We've got in our weight management program, for our tirzepatide, our manufactured tirzepatide and semaglutide, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of practices and med spas signed up. About 300 of them were not Med Results members. We have not really done a good job to go back and get them to sign up, but they're still involved in the program. If you want this, you do not have to be a Med Results Network member. We'll set you up. So you'll definitely be set up. Does it still have the same results with someone who is not taking a GLP-1?
Yeah, I can answer that.
Sure.
I think you get similar results. I find that the more difficulty is, I think, in the beginning They get a little more bloating or a little more of the nausea in the beginning, taking it solely, and they tend to overdose on it. The ones that are compliant, like has been recommended, once daily, once daily, once daily, then go up. Those have done very well, the ones that have been compliant on that. And as I showed you in that one patient, we were able to get a nice, in 3 months, get a beautiful weight loss with it. So.
Next question is, I'm sorry if I already mentioned that and missed it, but can you use this medication to take patients off GLP-1?
Yes, and that's part of our study we did. We
Okay.
were able to place them on this after we got them off of GLP-1. And again, we have a whole host of those patients that maintain themselves on it.
Dr. Goldfarb, I think this one you can answer as well. When you are incorporating Calocurb with GLP-1, how do you approach that? Do you suggest to them to take that only on days that they feel hungry? So in other words, are you making them taking it 7 days in a row, or like you said, right before their next shot when they start to get hungry?
So I found that my staff, especially the lead person in our office that really spends all the time with them, suggested that they start taking it along when they first get their injections and they kind of get used to it along with it and they feel confident with it. Others did not. Others just wanted to do the shots. And then when they got the breakthrough hunger or some issues, then they're the ones that started on it. But I think they do much better when they start along with it and maintain it.
Next question, what are the contraindications?
Ed, you can mention it. I mean, we did mention
Yeah,
it.
sure. So, I mean, any sort of major gastrointestinal condition. So, if you've got inflammatory bowel disease, then that will be a contraindication. If you've had bowel resectioning, then that's, I guess, a case by case basis to evaluate because it will be delivered and work differently. So, if someone's had a gastric sleeving or they've had a Roux-en-Y bypass operation, then they'd probably be more likely to have, I guess, more potent effects. So that would need to be managed. Also, if someone's got a previous history of enteroendocrine cancer, so enteroendocrine gut cancer, then that would be a contraindication as well.
You're also going to want to do this very responsibly and get and work up your patient. So you would get a metabolic panel. You would look for elevated enzymes, and certainly pancreatic and liver, so that you just you take this under a more medical framework to rule out some things.
When should you start using Calocurb when you are titrating patients off the injectables? So Dr. Goldfarb, that'd probably be more appropriate for you.
So what we do is we generally will wean them down off of their higher dose of their Ozempic or tirzepatide, basically weaning them down to their starting baseline. And then from there, we've already incorporated our Calocurb, or if we have not, we will. And we'll make sure that they have something instead of just stopping cold turkey. The studies that showed that the GLP-1s that were stopped cold turkey is where you got the 70 to 75% weight loss.
Right.
So we find that we incorporate it and get them used to it. And basically, it's not only just getting used to it for your own physical reaction to it, it's really the mental part of it. So you're actually just taking it and remembering to take it.
Do you use the same dosage of Calocurb if people are on the injectables, Dr. Goldfarb?
You know, I've given more to the patients to give me my feedback on. We tell them what the dosing is for it, that if you're not on a GLP-1 injectable, but I found that, it really varies. I have certain patients that will do, 2 tablets twice a day that are on an injectable and have had zero problems with that. And then most of them, to be candid with you, are probably just on one during the day, during lunchtime, and then one at night is really where they kind of really filter out to, but
Okay.
it varies.
What is the cost for a wellness spa to get access to Calocurb? I guess that's a question for me. So the
Well,
program that we have set up with Calocurb, basically there's two types. You can do both at the same time, or you do one or the other. We have a wholesale program, or if you want to carry product, and we'll give you more detail on that in your clinic, and then you want to sell it in your clinic, or we have an affiliate program where you tell the patient where to go, and Calocurb will do the pick, pack, and shipping to that patient, and you will get your share of that. Now, typically it's $90 per bottle, and you're going to go through that in a month. But if you are in our program, your patient will get it for $80, and then you generally get 20% of that, and that gets sent to you. So that's part of the good economics in this. I'll tell the other part a little bit later, but that's the I'll have a link for you to go to sign up for the program. Next question, this one is to Dr. Goldfarb. Would you please share your contact information so I can contact you for guidance, as you offered earlier? You can send all of your questions like that to info@medresultsnetwork.com, and then we'll get you matched up with Dr. Goldfarb. Unless Dr. Goldfarb wants to give out all of his information now,
that's
but
fine.
we'll do it for you, Dr. Goldfarb.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Next question, what's the cost to the patient? So in this case, it's going to be $80. And the patient will go through one bottle in about a month, maybe a little bit less. And how many capsules would one take beyond the first week if they are only taking Calocurb? Dr. Goldfarb, you want to answer that question?
Well, I know it was mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Walker had said some people go up to 3 days. I haven't done that. The max dose that I have really allowed that I know of they're doing is 2 tablets twice a day. So a total of 4 capsules a day.
Okay, are there any more questions? If not, let me close this out. Do any of you guys have comments or anything to anybody?
Well, I would just note that part of the success of Dr. Goldfarb's program is how he's really focusing on exercise, using a device like M-Sculpt to tone muscles and build muscles, which is obviously always an issue in body composition as we lose weight, particularly for those patients who are not going to get not into exercise when they come to see you. You had some patients, obviously, that have that. So I think the idea of making sure that you're able to assess body composition and do some things to keep muscle mass and strength up are why he gets such great results.
Thank you.
Great. So let me, first of all, I want to thank you guys for participating in this. And I would like to share this with everybody, if you can see what I've got here. And if you have any questions, you can email us at info@medresultsnetwork.com, and we'll get your question or your comments off to the right person. That's info@medresultsnetwork.com. If you got a question for me, I'm Jeff, Jeff, at medresultsnetwork.com. If you want to go ahead and participate in the Calocurb program, you can onboard your practice. This is the link to that. You can use the scan, and I think we're going to put that up in the either the Q&A or the notes to where you can get the link to go on to that. It's a wonderful program. And remember, I told you at the very beginning of this, we always try to look at stuff, contracts that we want to get for that has good science, I think that Dr. Walker proved that the money and the time that has gone into this product is especially for a nutraceutical is fantastic. So that's the good science part, the good medicine. Dr. Goldfarb told you how this is used. It can be used as a side-by-side, a stack, or to fight weight rebound. And the good economics is your patient is going to get off your program. And you don't want to say bye-bye to them and not have any type of control or any kind of communication with them and have the revenue trail cut off right then and there. You'll still have a little bit of revenue trail, but what's most important is that somebody doesn't get on your program for say 6 months and they've been paying $500 a month and for them to go out and say it was the biggest waste of money. I lost 35 pounds, but gained 70% of it back, and it was the biggest waste of $3,000. That's bad economics. Good economics is you're giving them something when they come off the needle that's going to combat that weight rebound, and that's good economics. We do have some more questions. If you guys mind, we're going to go ahead and get to that. We got a few more questions that just started coming in. Sorry about that, guys. So, what type of malpractice insurance will approve weight loss programs using this product? I can answer some of that if you guys don't mind. So we have a medical malpractice and general liability program, and we've had it for years, and we have lots of med spas and physician practices that have signed up. They're very experienced in aesthetic medicine. We're finding that a lot of carriers, if this question were asked about 6 months ago, a lot of carriers weren't covering it. Anything with the GLP-1, because they're finding that med spas are not testing. You need to do the minimum lipase tests, couple of thyroid tests, and then the basics that Dr. Tager talked about. We actually are going to be announcing a program with Avexia Diagnostics. They developed 2 GLP-1 panels, benchmarking panel, which consists of 6 or 7 tests, and then the follow-up, which consists of 4 tests. We always tell we're getting more and more med spas signing up with us that are owned by somebody who doesn't have a medical background. They don't understand things like everybody here does. We tell folks that you're going to get some 200-pound guy in there, put him on tirzepatide, he's going to go lose 40 pounds. And he's going to look in the mirror and it's going to look really impressive. But what's even more impressive, if you take somebody from a a blood glucose level of 127 down to 79, that's more impressive than what he's looking at in the mirror. So we encourage testing. If you are doing the right thing, like Dr. Goldfarb is, you're practicing medicine. If you're practicing good medicine, your medical malpractice carrier should cover the case. So if that patient does become a plaintiff, and you're doing the right things, you're going to be fine. What you should do is ask your broker if they are covering GLP-1s. We are finding that GLP-1s, if you're not doing it, practicing it right, they are not covering it. We're also finding with exosomes, that's not being covered because that wasn't originally written into the policy. Many times folks will sign up and they roll the policy over. We've got one practice, 5 years, they've been rolling the policy. Well, 5 years ago, there really wasn't such thing as commercialized exosomes. So they had an exosome case come up, and the medical malpractice payer just kind of sat there and didn't do anything. So we are going to be doing a webinar in the next 3 or 4 weeks where we're going to invite some of the underwriters of some of these insurance companies, and they're going to talk about what's covered, what's not covered, what you can do, pretty much do what Dr. Goldfarb's doing, what you can do to make sure that if that patient becomes a plaintiff, you're doing all the right things for your insurance company to cover you. And then if you guys look in the, I don't know if you can see in the Q&A, we have the link for you to sign up for Calocurb. You just hit that link and then it'll be open in your browser. You can later go in and do that. Again, just ask us for the link at info@medresultsnetwork.com and we'll give it. I got another question. Do you put your clients on any form of vitamin supplement while on Calocurb or GLP-1? Dr. Goldfarb?
No, maybe I'll have Dr. Tagger answer that one.
Yeah,
My thoughts.
my thoughts are putting patients on supplements that there are some oral peptides that can help with muscle mass and muscle maintenance. Also, attending to mitochondrial health, I think, is really important for mitochondrial energy. We've got to feed those mitochondria. So, for me, the maintaining muscle mass, maintaining mitochondrial health, but also, you're almost better off in a practice looking at getting your blood work up front and getting some markers. And also, I found that that nutrigenomics and genomic testing for vitamin and mineral deficiencies is important. You can pull micronutrient panels for people. This is where, I've got a book called Feed Your Skin Right, and this is the concept of personalized nutrition. So, while you're doing all of this, you should ascertain the quality of their diet. You should see what vitamins and minerals they're taking now, what supplements are these quality professional grade supplements. If it says 100, if it says 100 milligrams, is there really 100 milligrams in it? There's, a handful of really good professional grade supplement companies, and you do your patient a major service to get them on a good diet program, certainly what they eat, but also account for vitamin and mineral deficiencies and people who are less than optimal. So there's a whole host of things you could do that adds additional revenue to your practice and will get you the best outcome. I mean, I've often asked, surgeons and people who are doing procedures and people who, those of you out there are doing fractional resurfacing, why is it when you do the same procedure on two patients, one heals beautifully, another takes longer, has delayed wound healing, has more erythema, and that's because they don't have good tissue health. So I believe that it's incumbent on all of us to recognize and do the personal nutrition that gives these patients the better tissue to heal and to be healthier. That's my soapbox.
All right. Thanks. Can I get a copy of this recording? So yes, we will send this out to everybody who's registered. Next question, looks like it's the last one. Do you know which insurers are covering it? Email me, Jeff@medresultsnetwork.com or info@medresultsnetwork.com. I will have you talk to the person that heads up our insurance program. You can do it. The one thing I tell these med spas, the joke that I've always said is we're saving the world one wrinkle at a time. Now you've got, and you dealt with healthy, happy patients. Now you've got patients coming in that are comorbidity. They're obese, they might have heart issues, they might have diabetes issues. You've got to practice medicine. You've got to test the patient before you put them on these programs. You've got to pick and choose who's going to go home and take their skinny shot, and who do you want to constantly observe. And if you're doing those kinds of things, it's pretty hard for the insurance company not to back you. But we will have a webinar, and that webinar that we're going to have in about 3 or 4 weeks is specifically on med mal carriers and GLP-1s, weight management programs. But again, you're not saving wrinkles. You're going to find some guy that's going to come in here. He's going to lose his 40 pounds. God had stamped him to have a fatal heart attack next year, and you just saved his life. He doesn't know it. Nobody else does. But that's what's going on now. So not that you didn't take your patient base serious, but now you've got people coming in with comorbidity, and you just got to be careful and do the right things. And the insurance companies, when they see you doing that, you're going to be just fine. So I think that's all with the questions. It's been an hour. We really appreciate everybody coming on here in terms of the panel. And for those of you that have sat here and listened to this, anything that we can do for you, just hit us at info@medresultsnetwork.com. We can get you signed up for the Calocurb program. Remember, good science, good medicine, good economics. And it doesn't sound like it's a lot of good economics when you're making $16 every time they do it, an order, but they're ordering it monthly for the next 5 years. And you're going to have 100. Here's what we do know. If you have 100 patients in your program today, in 6 months, 50 of them are probably going to be different. So what happened to the 50 that went off? You want to constantly make sure they're doing the right thing. You want to constantly make sure there's no weight rebound. So they don't sit there and go around, yes, I went to Dr. Tager. It was the biggest waste of money. I gained all my weight back. So this good economics, good medicine, and it's great science behind it. I don't know how many times I can say it. Thank you so much. Do any of the panel members have any comments or anything?
No, I think my last comment was when Mark had answered the question on the nutrition. I think many of these people want to get that new life. They want to not just lose weight, they want all their metabolic, they want to feel better, more energy, they want to start exercising. And I do think a good nutrition basis and good supplements that Mark is really an expert, Dr. Tager's an expert on, is really, really important. And every day we get more and more requests for that, because they want our expertise because, people are looking good, they're feeling good. And that's what I think is important. So I think we're doing it right. And this was a great webinar, I think, really informative. And hopefully everybody got something out of it.
Thank you so much for participating, everybody. Thank you so much.